What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with what's next for Leon Edwards after UFC loss. Leon Edwards and his team may have been planning to retain the welterweight throne, but following UFC London, there's going to be some serious doubts as to whether that will ever happen. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Edwards faced Sean Brady in the headliner, and as some pundits expected, the latter's wrestling and top game proved to be way too much for the former champion. Brady came out pressuring from the get-go, and in round 2, it started to become clear that it wasn't going to be Rocky's night. The Philly fighter repeatedly took Edwards down, and in round 4, he finished the deal with a tight guillotine choke. So what's next for Edwards? On one hand, it would seem hasty to close the book on his days as a top contender. After all, it wasn't that long ago that Edwards was scoring wins over the likes of Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. But this is back-to-back fights now, in which we've seen Edwards exposed on the ground. Belal Muhammad did that to Rocky last July, while ending his reign as champion with a dominant decision win. Furthermore, Edwards will turn 34 this summer, so the clock is winding down on his prime years. So it'll be interesting to see where the UFC goes in terms of Leon Edwards and see if they move him into a gatekeeper role or whether he can score some wins to get back into title contention. Could the UFC look at him fighting, say, the winner of the upcoming scrap between Jeff Neal and Carlos Prates? Who do you want to see Edwards fight next? And what about Brady, who's now in the title shot mix? During his post-fight interview, Sean Brady talked about being a backup role for the title. Also, Brady believes he has more of a legitimate case for the title than Shavkat. Here's what he had to say.
I think if you look at the people I've been beating versus Shavkat, Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards, my last two versus his last two, I think his were Wonder Boy and Ian Gary. I got a nice little record going, but I just want to keep adding names to my resume, and yeah.
Would you be interested in doing that for the Montreal card, just in case, weighing as a backup to solidify your shot if you need to?
Could be a possibility. I don't think it's too far of a flight from Philly. We'll see.
Arman Tsarukyan calls out UFC fighters. Arman Tsarukyan is still waiting to book his next fight, and it sounds like he's getting a bit frustrated. He was booked to fight Islam Makhachev at UFC 311 in January, but the #1 contender pulled out just hours before due to a reported back injury. Although the Armenian secured a title shot on account of going 9-1 since his initial fight with Islam, Dana White announced that Tsarukyan would not be fighting for the belt next. The belief is that the UFC wasn't too thrilled with Arman's withdrawal. Well, with April fast approaching, it's not clear when and who Tsarukyan will fight next, and recently the 28-year-old took aim at his fellow contenders. Via social media, he posted this: "I'm the true #1 contender, ready to prove it against anyone, but how am I supposed to do that when everyone else just wants to fight on paper? Charles, Justin, you can sit and wait, or you can step up and earn it." It'll be interesting to see who the UFC taps to face Arman next, since he and Gaethje have never fought, and because of each man's abilities, there's a lot to like with that fight. Of course, since all the drama at UFC 311 went down, Ilia Topuria has vacated the featherweight title and is moving up to lightweight. As a result, there's extensive speculation that the UFC is hoping to book Makhachev versus Topuria next, especially since both men are widely considered to be two of the best fighters in the world. So one would think it would generate a lot of interest. But while talking to KO Monero MMA recently, Charles Oliveira took a poke at that view. "I'm looking for a title and today's champion is Islam Makhachev, so Topuria is a very tough guy. He deserves all the respect in the world, but right now, I don't see it as a big fight. And if I'm looking for a title, well, I have to fight Makhachev in order to win and become a champion again." You can't fault Oliveira for wanting to lock up another fight with Makhachev, but chances are not too many people agree that Islam versus Ilia isn't a big fight. In fact, Topuria himself responded to Charles. "Charles, it's better if you stay quiet. You have 10 losses, 5 by knockout, 4 by submission, and 1 by decision. You are the contender, while I am the champion, the father of the entire division. I haven't come here to ask anything. Here, I am the one in charge." What's your take on Dubronx's comment and Topuria's follow-up? Dana White provides update on Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. We're pretty far into 2025 and still no word on the Jon Jones-Tom Aspinall fight, and there are concerns that the much-discussed bout will never happen. But Dana White continues to insist that the UFC will get this booked, while at the same time offering few to no insights regarding the negotiations. Following Jones's victory over Stipe Miocic in November, he finally provided fans with a glimmer of hope that he would actually fight Tom Aspinall. After scoffing at the idea for months, Bones made it clear, however, that the UFC would need to fork over some big money in order to make it happen. As the first quarter of 2025 wraps up, there's still no word on if and when this fight will happen. But while talking with TNT recently, White again insisted that he will get it done. The fight is going to happen. It's just a matter of when now. Getting it signed and done. The fight will happen. It's going to happen. It's done, but it's not done. Not done enough to sit right here now and announce it and give you a date, but the fight is going to happen. And when White was pressed again for a bit more info, he followed up with this: "It's just a matter of getting it signed now." It was reported by Ariel Helwani recently that Jones wants 6 months to prepare for this fight with Aspinall, and if that's accurate, we could be looking at a late 2025 booking. And so you gotta wonder if that could be holding up negotiations. In addition, of course, to the financials. Speculation about this fight aside, recently, the interim heavyweight champion was asked to construct the perfect fighter using the abilities of others. The English star proceeded to cite Jones as the fighter with the best defense. Hard to argue with that one. Jones has been taking serious heat from many fans over the last year or so for how he's talked about this Aspinall fight. The word ducking has been used a gazillion times. During UFC London, Tom Aspinall even went as far as holding up a rubber duck when the camera was on him during the broadcast. Things are heating up, so it's a matter of time when this fight gets booked. But while Jones was on hand at a dirty boxing event recently, the fans went after Aspinall verbally. Jones is reportedly a part owner of Dirty Boxing now, but are you surprised to see the fans giving it to Aspinall? Bo Nickal suggests a change in the UFC. Recently, Bo Nickal proposed a pretty dramatic change to how the UFC lines up each fight card, and it wasn't long before the wrestler's idea was getting piled on. Over the years, there's been plenty of discussions about UFC cards and broadcasts, and in particular, how long some events take to get through. Well, recently, Nickal threw a bit of a curveball while discussing how MMA cards are constructed. Here's an idea for running an event: start the night with your most exciting, most anticipated match. Then build to your least competitive match at the end. The UFC and other sporting events do it wrong. Have your best match of the event on the prelims. Smart. Yeah, that would be quite a departure for what's going on now. As noted, Nickal's pitch didn't go over well with a lot of fans. Here's what some of the reactions were. Great idea if you want to completely eliminate money and excitement generated by hype. Yeah, then everyone leaves the arena 4 fights in and the rest have to fight in an empty arena. Damn, you should headline every event after your last fight. Or scatter the card so people have incentive to show up and stay throughout the whole thing. It's all about ads anyway and revenue. Best way is to keep eyeballs on the whole time and arenas packed. This is a terrible idea. You make people wait for what they want to see so they watch longer, not give it right away. This is a terrible idea, bro. You want people to stick around to the end to watch the whole event and end on a great note, which makes you leave wanting more. Start off an event with a good fight and scatter the rest of the card with other good fights. The UFC model has it down. Pretty sure Bellator or PFL did that a few years ago. Can't remember if it tanked, but they've never done it again. What do you think of Nickal's proposal? Merab almost falls off cliff while recording dance video. Merab Dvalishvili loves to bust out his dance moves whenever possible on social media, but recently he took a spill while dancing on the edge of a cliff. Not only did Merab stumble back and nearly out of frame, it looked like he was limping a bit after struggling to get back to his feet. While it's a relief that nothing happened, not surprisingly, the MMA world has some pretty interesting things to say. Check it out. Headline almost read: UFC champ dances off the side of a mountain to his Bro, your UFC bantamweight champion just almost falling from a mountain while dancing for a Twitter video. Sean O'Malley would have instantly been gifted the vacated title shot. Yeah, you gotta wonder if maybe Merab will reconsider where he's filming his dancing numbers moving forward. All that aside, as this video is being produced, the expectation is Merab will rematch Sean O'Malley this summer, possibly in June at UFC 316. Here's hoping the bantamweight champ didn't tweak anything too seriously while taking a spill. Ilia Topuria next UFC fight. It's been a little while since Ilia Topuria vacated the featherweight title, all in order to make a run at lightweight, but as the MMA world waits to see what's next for him, Dana White is saying that there could be news around the corner. As we covered earlier, the consensus is the UFC is driving hard to book a fight between Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria, and there have been rumors that the all-star bout could happen this June. Well, recently, White sat down with TNT, and of course, he was asked about Topuria's next fight. The UFC CEO stopped short of breaking any news, but he did say that they hope to announce El Matador's next fight soon. We're still working on that. We're working on the plan for Ilia. We should have some announcements about him. Give us just a couple more weeks, and we'll have some concrete plans for him. But as of right now, that is true. He's vacating. He's moving up, and we'll figure out the rest in the next couple of weeks. So what do you think? Did anything Dana say tip his hand in terms of whether Topuria will battle Makhachev next? If Topuria is not tapped to fight Makhachev next, who could he face at 155? Yesterday during Fight Companion, Joe Rogan said he doesn't believe Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria is happening. Here's what he had to say. I don't think that's happening. I wonder what they're going to do with Topuria. I like Topuria versus Oliveira. Oliveira is so tall, so dangerous everywhere, huge reach advantage. Those lightweights are really big, Islam's huge. Would you be interested in seeing Topuria versus Oliveira? Let us know down in the comment section below. Recently, Jorge Masvidal opined that if El Matador were to fight Justin Gaethje, the latter would get bombed out.
His power, he hits harder than Islam, I'm telling you. He hits harder than almost every 55er there. It's because a lot of it's genetic, but his technique is legit along with his genetics God gave him. So, man, he could win the belt, I'm telling you, and defend that belt. He could do some rock star at that weight class, you know?
That's sick. Well,
He'll beat like a guy like Gaethje that just won. I think he would flatline Gaethje.
Yeah.
He'll put Gaethje in a coma.
Yeah, definitely.
He'll put Gaethje. They don't want to see him do that, bro. They don't want to see him end their poster boy Gaethje like that, because he'll end Gaethje.
Of course, due to the well-documented rivalry between Paddy Pimblett and Topuria, many fans wondered if that fight could materialize down the line. So it was interesting to see Pimblett fist bump Topuria at the ceremonial weigh-ins for UFC London. Topuria headed to London on account of Guram Kutateladze, who is booked to fight Kel Fernandez at the event. As you can see, Khamzat Chimaev was also on hand. Unfortunately for Kutateladze and his team, he came up short against Fernandez and lost via unanimous decision. What's next for Jan Błachowicz after UFC London? Jan Błachowicz hadn't fought in nearly 2 years, and recently he turned 42, but it's clear that the former champion is far from washed. Błachowicz faced surging light heavyweight contender Carlos Olberg in the co-headliner of UFC London, who was riding a 7-fight winning streak heading into this bout. Due to this, and because Blachowicz' prime is in the rearview mirror, Olberg was a considerable favorite on the betting lines. At the end of the day, Olberg's ridiculous speed delivered him a unanimous decision win as he outstruck Jan in rounds 2 and 3, but Blachowicz was in the fight from the opening bell and he never appeared to be in any serious danger of getting finished. In fact, early on, it looked like Jan might actually just pull off an upset. So what's next for him? That's a good question. Blachowicz demonstrated that he can still hang with elite competition, as Olberg may have secured a shot at the belt next, depending on what happens with the expected rematch between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev. So one would think that the Polar Star will be booked to fight another top tender or another highly touted fighter who's rising up the ranks. Does Jan want to play the role of gatekeeper? Maybe not, but given that he's coming off shoulder surgery and that he decided to keep fighting, it would be shocking to see if Blachowicz didn't welcome the opportunity to try and halt another fighter's rise. Joe Rogan says Dana White made a huge mistake. During yesterday's Fight Companion with Joe Rogan live streaming UFC London, he talked about Dana White making a huge mistake. In his opinion, Joe Rogan believes Dana investing in Power Slap was a mistake, and Dana should have invested in kickboxing with UFC gloves. Rogan believes that many UFC fans aren't huge fans of wrestling and grappling, so having stand-up kickboxing would have been the best move for them. Here's what he had to say during the live stream. And before we continue, we have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day.
I think the UFC up when they went with slap fighting. I've been telling them forever, you guys should get into kickboxing. If you only like stand-up fights, it's not like the old days of kickboxing where they're boring, like PK, karate.
There's characters, man.
And the knockouts are crazy.
Also, all your champs are coming from kickboxing.
Yeah.
Alex, Izzy, like you're some monsters.
Kickboxing with MMA gloves in a cage would be giant in the UFC.
Dope.
Just have a striking only segment of the UFC.
Put the same amount of resources you did in the slap fight into kickboxing,
it's
and we're
huge.
cooking.
Right. And then
because they're doing it with jiu-jitsu.
Right.
They're doing they put how many millions of dollars in jiu-jitsu, and they even have more of a budget for it.
Having the UFC get involved heavily in jiu-jitsu is huge.
What are your thoughts on Rogan's comments? Do you think Dana White made a mistake going into Power Slap rather than something like kickboxing with UFC gloves? Let us know down in the comment section.